Hello everybody and welcome to Monday. It's not often we hear welcome to Monday and are happy about it, but I guess art is as good a way as any to ease us into the new week. My name is Debbie and I'm a mixed media artist, and I like to post every Monday if I possibly can. A bit late this morning, to be fair, but better late than never. Actually, I'm at a bit of a loose end this morning because I couldn't settle on anything. It's that Monday thing, I'm sure. So what I've decided to do is a simple sketch using my very favourite things, and you can sketch along with me or watch or just listen to what I'm doing, whatever you would like. But do get yourself something nice to drink and settle in. It's hopefully nice and relaxing, and I'll tell you what I'm doing as I go along. If you like what you're seeing, please don't forget to leave me a like and subscribe if you're new. And if you really would like to learn to paint in my style, check out my Patreon, which is, all the links are in the description box below, and you would be very, very welcome. And we do a lot more of what you're seeing here over there. Okay, so I'm going to do quite a simple scene with it's sort of a mid to late summer vibe about it, I'm hoping, because one thing I absolutely love about this time of the year is the green of the trees is really deepened to the point where it can't get any deeper. It's going to get on with autumn after this sort of phase. But you've got these fabulous straw-coloured fields where the crops are either being ripened or they're being harvested, so you've got stubble and that sort of thing. And I just love that. And we get some blue skies. I'm in Germany, in North Germany. So this is actually a picture from the UK. And I lived there for 9 years as well. So it's sort of a bit all over the place. But the look is actually quite similar apart from the architecture. But I've decided I wanted to paint a little white house in my scene. So I have gone back to England, metaphorically at least. Now, my favourite way to start painting is with gouache, and as you can see, my gouache palette is extremely messy. That is by design. I never clean it because I want to be able to have the colours nice and muted, and they tend to get a bit muddy anyway, so I've decided it's something I don't need to care about. I'm going to start off with a dome blender, number 10. I like that because I can scrub with it and I don't have to worry about the point being looked after. I mean, obviously you've still got to respect them to a certain extent, but nowhere near as much as if the point was really important. And I'm going to use a little bit of blue and a warm grey and white together in no particular order or method, just to get some colour into the sky. Deliberately using this swirly sort of vibe because, number one, I like it, and number two, it means that the texture is already there without me having to add too many clouds, and that makes it quite nice. I'm working in my Hahnemühle Nostalgia sketchbook, so yeah, I like that one too. It's nice smooth paper, slightly off-white. They call it nature white. Naturweiss here, but it's slightly off-white. My IKEA table that was once white is about the same colour now. Right, so I'm now going to trade to a slightly larger. That was a number 10 dome blender. I'm going to use a number 12, making sure that it's quite clean. And my favourite mixture for trees is a dark blue, very, very dark blue, very, very dark brown, and very, very dark green. And the reason why I'm being so sneaky with that colour, I'm not trying to be, it's just that different brands have different colours in different countries, and if you're not where I am, you won't be able to get a particular brand or particular colour necessarily, which is really, really frustrating. So I prefer instead to say the colour. So in using the darkest possible green that you can find and the darkest blue and the darkest brown, you will still achieve what I have, or at least a version of it. Let's get around there. I like this brush because I can, again, scrub those trees in just fill it up, get rid of the white paper, and I'll go back in afterwards and find all those trees with coloured pencils and make something of them. At the moment it is enough to get the colour onto the paper. So up here a little bit. I hadn't planned to make it quite as big as that, but there you go. Things happen sometimes and it's not really within my control, or at least that's how it feels. Right, just pick the house out and get some colour into the trees like so. Actually, that can go over the roof slightly, that will work too. Okay, so lots of trees. I don't often wash my brush, but I will for this because I want to keep that colour where it is. And for the actual straw, which is a really blonde yellow, if that makes sense. I mean, we've practically all seen straw, so I'm sure you know what I mean, of the colour of the fields when it's actually harvest time. Can deepen that just a little bit. Maybe add a tiny bit of brown. I think that's what's missing. Yes, that's what's missing. The thing I love about gouache is if I've gone down onto the part where I don't want to be, I can just reactivate that lower level and blend it in a bit. See there, a little bit there. And I don't want that to be too neat and tidy, that edge. Not much chance with me on the go, because I want this to be a nice thick field that hasn't actually been harvested yet. So just getting some texture in. And because, as I said, I'm a mixed media artist, I've got lots of ways of coming back in and putting some more colours over the top of that. So far so good. You can push these brushes too, rather than just always pulling like you would normally with a brush. And it's very important to know that, because if you're using a normal brush and you push rather than pull, you will wreck the tips completely. So what I mean by that, and I've spoken about this on my other videos if you've seen them, so excuse me if this bit's a bit boring, but just in case people are new, it's already getting a little bit funny there. It doesn't make any difference at all. But if you were to have a brush like this, for example, with really, really long bristles, if you were to push that, the static electricity, and this being nylon, would completely wreck it, which is fine if you want a brush for special effects, but it also means that you've ruined the brush that you wanted just for regular painting. So with these, I don't care, and I don't have to care, because all I want is a brush where I can push it around, quite literally, get the colour down in this swirly textured pattern. Now this one is a DecoArt one. It came from their Traditions range, and this was about 9 years ago. Apparently, I've heard, thank you very much for people who have said, Traditions brand is not available anymore in DecoArt, but the DecoArt Dome Blender absolutely is. So if you go onto decoart.com, if you are anywhere in the world, but especially in America, you will find something there. And elsewhere in the world, I dare say if you were to contact them and ask, they might be able to tell you about other stockists, which is quite useful. Like I said, here in Germany, I dread to say go here or go there, because we've got brands here. And it's ironic because a lot of the art brands that we use and love every day, they're actually German, and they're made in Germany and are extremely high quality. But then again, there are one or two British ones, for example, that I love, and I can't get them. So I don't want to put anybody in the position where they're frustrated because they can't get a colour. I'm going to dry this off and I shall return. That's nice and dry, and that's super important. If you are using mixed media and you're finding it doesn't work for you the way you see other artists using it, check that it's super, super dry first, because that can be the reason. So when you come back with coloured pencils, for example, over this substrate of gouache, if the gouache is not dry, the coloured pencil won't work. Okay. Here again, I just want that tree to be behind the house, so I can very gently just reactivate the green and blend it into the roof colour, which also doesn't hurt. For this, I'm using a number 6 flat brush, just a regular, found at the art store flat brush. Now here, that tree is in front of the house, so just got to go around it. That's absolutely fine too. Getting some colour on. And the chimneys in this part of England quite often are made from brick. So we'll pop that in, which is a pop of warm colour. Okay, a little bit there. Now you might ask why we would bother to do anything with the house when the house is going to be largely white. It's because it adds a little bit of texture underneath. Oops, that's not what I wanted. It adds a little bit of texture to use the coloured pencils on, and I actually prefer to have that paint there because it also adds a little bit more to the tooth of the paper, which with colour pencil, as you probably know if you've tried anything like that, can very quickly get squashed down and it won't accept any more of what you're trying to do to it. Can also just give it a bit of contour here with the grey. Too much grey. There's always that fine line. It's okay. That's what I love about gouache. Just make that middle bit stand out a bit more. I'll fix that with coloured pencil. Right, so wash that. I always wash my brushes straight away, even though it is gouache that I'm using. And if it were to accidentally set in the brush, it's not the disaster that acrylic gouache is. Never be tempted to mix those two up, because acrylic gouache is a gouache that dries matte, but it dries permanently. So once it's on your brush, that's pretty much the end of that brush. It's as simple as that. Yeah, it's so with watercolor and gouache, regular gouache, you can reactivate it, but I really wouldn't. The trick is to wash your brushes and to take them out of the water. Now, with some of these trees, if I can just grab my dome blender again, I'm going to use just pure water on the edges of some, because I want to put a bit of extra texture and feather them out just a little bit. Sometimes just a little bit of water can just change where the paint is and what it's doing. I can always get more paint if I take too much out. The problem with these dome blenders, they're absolutely amazing, but you've got to be damn careful because they hold a lot of water, and if you're planning to do what I'm doing here right now, you can find you'll get a flood really quickly. I haven't been too heavy-handed with the paint. I'm even wondering if that couldn't do with a little bit more paint down the bottom. So let's go back into the darkest blue and the darkest brown, bit of darkest green, and just big some of that colour up. And like I said, I can push this brush. It's such a luxury. And I have to remember not to do it with some of my other brushes, because they will not forgive you. That's the last you'll see of them. Right, just a little bit more green there. A little bit down here, because I want it quite dark around the bottom. A bit up there, a bit like that. It is fairly important not to get a halo around all the trees that's absolutely even. Anytime you see in your work that you're getting a bit of a pattern going, stop, stand back and squint. Squinting's really good because it helps you see what you're actually doing there, and break the pattern, because otherwise it just doesn't look natural and believable. Right, I'll dry that and I shall return after having covered everything that I'm likely to tip over. That's always a possibility. So what we've got here at the moment is some really lovely, moody, deep colours, which I absolutely adore. Sorry, just altering the lighting there a little bit. It's not brilliant today. It's a weird sort of light outside. We've had some storms, so maybe that's it. Yeah, I love these deep, dirty colours, and a lot of people don't like gouache for this reason, but it's the actual reason I go for it. My next layer, because you're moving from the back towards the front. Actually, let me just grab, if I possibly can, I bet I can't find it, there it is, light aqua. Sometimes I will go, this is a Derwent Light Fast one, go over the sky sometimes if I want just a little bit more lightness in the sky, because you're always going to be working from the back to the front of a painting, and the furthest part back is going to be the sky. Here again, if that's a bit grey, you can knock that grey back a little bit with some colour pencil, and I find that this light aqua is quite pleasant. It lightens it without making it too blue, and don't want that. I've just gone onto the edge there and I don't want that, so I'm just going to remove that bit of pencil, which is also quite easy. You could equally use a white, and my favourite white is Derwent Drawing in Chinese white, but this will give you a lighter version of what's there already. Use two if you want a different sort of cloud. It's a matter of experimentation, but light aqua gives you a bit of a more of a blue cast to the sky without making the sky blue as such. Just a bit of light there on the horizon. What you can also do is over the top of your gouache, if you would like some spaces here in the trees where the sky is poking through, it's quite easy to actually do that with the light aqua pencil, and just at random wherever you think they will do the most good. And we can make some sense of that in a second. Here again, just lighten that up. You know how trees are sometimes, they're not always this thick. So yeah, you can make gaps in the trees as well, which we can then fill and put some highlights. That sort of helps you find the trees. So my next thing then is, I have three favourites that I use, and one is a Derwent Light Fast in Forest, one is Derwent Drawing Yellow Ochre, the other one is Caran d'Ache Luminance Green Ochre. Those are my go-to over the top of this dark green substrate. So the first thing I'll do is lighten up the edges and go just over the edge, because that looks like if the sun is shining through the trees. Then where I've got something here, I might put some light there, because it'll have the same effect. That's a bit of sky now. Wasn't before, is now. Just finding the shapes, making sort of vague tree shapes here and there. Along here, you decide where your light is coming from, of course, and in my paintings and pictures, if I'm doing something that's a bit imaginary, like this one, the light always comes from the left. I just feel more comfortable with that. Here, that little bit of edge, it really makes it look lighter. So at the moment, it looks very sort of dark and gothic, and you think, well, that's not really very summery, is it? But when you come in and do everything that you're supposed to be doing, it brings the light back into the picture, but it allows for some nice dramatic shadows as well. Just lighten those up on the edges there. And I'm using the pencil sort of on its edge, just to soften it a little bit, rather than point down like so, more sort of longer. And I found that, you know, at the moment there's a lot, all you hear in the art world is loosening up your work. I sort of want to, but I sort of don't. I'm quite happy that my natural parts of a picture are quite loose. That works for me. But when I get to the house, I want it to be quite tight and precise. So that was the green ochre. Then I'll come back and do this. I'll break my pencil. That's really useful. Make sure you do that. That's just, it's pretty typical. It's Monday. I'm having it. Unfortunately, that is where you lose a lot of your pencil, is in the sharpening. So, you know, do be careful. This is the highlight that goes over the top of the other green. And again, a bit out onto the sky, so just over the edge of it. And just adds a little bit more different sort of shade. This tree now is in front of the other one. So I can do that with it. A little bit on there. And a bit round here at the top. Certainly there where it's in front of the house. This is a bank of some sort of thing. It's probably a rhododendron. If you find that you've gone a little bit too much and you want to knock some back, that's where the forest colour comes in. And again, you can just go over the top and shade it out a little bit. See here, for example, we can add some of the shadows back in. I particularly want it to be quite deep and mysterious, so I don't want it to be too light and bright all around. Over here, for example, there aren't many dark bits, so I can add some in with my forest pencil as it peters out there naturally, sort of thing. Now, where these dark parts are, you could absolutely leave that, but I can't leave anything alone. So I'm going to have another go at sharpening another pencil. So I want a bit of more of a point on that. This one's a Caran d'Ache. It is raw umber 50%, and it's particularly good for adding in some branches and trunks to give the trees a bit of context. Because, I mean, you can see that they're a bank of trees. Most people, you could leave them at that, but most people will understand that this is a bank of trees of some sort. But you can also add a little bit down here. I don't like to leave these areas with nothing in them. I prefer to do something to everything. It's probably control issues or something. Something from deep in my childhood that wasn't addressed properly. Who knows? But here we are. Make it work for you. So just some random sort of texture there. Maybe a little bit here. And you'll find where you've gone with the forest pencil, it won't be as light. So that works actually. So that's basically what I would do there. Still with the Caran d'Ache ones, French grey, working on the house, just on the roof a bit. Just give it some texture. Again, it would be really nice. Yeah, obviously the sort of student who comes into class Monday morning, no sharp pencils, nothing at all, not prepared. It's all right, we can do it as we go along as a rule. So what I'm doing is I'm getting some texture onto the roof. It's actually 90% about texture. On this side, because the sun is coming in from this way, on this side here, we can go a little bit darker and sort of fill it all in, but leave the gouache gaps on the other side. Because then if you come back in with your Derwent drawing in Chinese white and go over the whole lot, what this does is burnishes the roof and sort of melds it all together. Because the roof is not up close. The whole house is not up close. It's quite a lot into the distance. So we're not going to see the sorts of details that you would see. Where's my trunk colour? The burnt umber 50%. You're not going to see the sort of details that if the house was the main subject. And there's a little bit of a front to this house which is coming out slightly. So again, just using some texture in here, and texture around there for a bit of shadow, bit there, and under the roof, under the eaves here. And then back in with the white to push it back and burnish it, which also brings back the colour that I want on the house. Now at this point I would be reaching for a acrylic marker. This one's a cheap one off Amazon. It's 0.7 millimeter, and it just allows me to go along and put some colour on there. It's not very much colour at all. It's not very happy with me at the moment. I suspect it's running out. It's had a fair lot of work. And I've not bought another one. This is my first ones I ever bought. That's a little bit better. Needed a good shake. So just to... It's not happy on that side. That's fair enough. I have almost certainly upset it at some point. I want a light colour. What have I got here? Staying with Caran d'Ache this time. Burnt ochre. Just to... It's very similar to what I've got already. Let's go with yellow ochre in drawing instead. Just to lighten the chimney on one side. Again, it's not the main focus of the drawing. Then I would grab, if I could find, I would grab my food nib pit pen. This one's a Faber-Castell. Just going under here. Give that some definition. Give that some definition. Bit weird definition on the other side there. And then some very simple windows, which is all it needs. Because the more detail I add, the more I'm going to bring that building forward. And I don't want to bring the building forward. I want it to stay where it's supposed to be. Where I did that, we can go over with the white again and just get rid of that. A little bit here, maybe. Yes, I think my pen is running out. Now, one thing I've also left is these spaces where there is a little bit of sky poking through the trees. While I've got the food nib, I would consider bringing some of the branches through here. And these will be black, whereas down here they're light, because these are silhouetted against a sky, and you won't see them if they're light. So just a little bit of a nod to the fact that when the light shines through, you can still see some of the branches, but they reflect differently and they look different. It's a bit weird there, but that's fine. I'm sure that will be okay with the police. Yeah, so just to acknowledge that we are aware that the foliage on the top of the tree is anchored to the ground that way. Right, the next thing and the last thing is our field of wheat, and we can do this in a few different ways. I'm going to get a large acrylic marker. This one is the biggest one I've got actually. It's an Edding, and it's 5 to 10 mil, which means it's a chisel tip, and it's warm beige. So what I want to do is just give it a good shake, and you can hear the mixing balls there doing what they're supposed to do. What I want to do is just to give this a bit of texture, but at the same time a resist. Like I said, it's all about texture. What I'm using here with the coloured pencils will stick to the gouache underneath. It won't necessarily stick to this, and coloured pencils won't often stick to each other. But I want to preserve some of the highlights. So one of the ways to preserve the highlights is to come in and put something over the top that not much will stick to. Use your fingers a bit. I use my fingers a lot actually, because this, like I said, this field has not yet been harvested. So we've got all these textured bits, and this is an acrylic marker, so it's going to be pretty good at preserving some of the lighter bits. The further away, the less structure you have to give it, because it doesn't have to have too much detail at all. Let's just leave it at that for a second. I'm not sure if the camera's picking that up. Yes, it is, I think. It's just it's scribbly. Most of what I do is scribbling. I probably learned all the art I needed by the time I left primary school. Pencil on its side, coming in here, light. This one is the French grey from Caran d'Ache. Put some more colour down here. A bit over here. So you're just scribbling and colouring and making marks. It's knowing where to make the marks, that's all. And that's what you learn when you see somebody who you like their work and they've got a way for you learning. That's where you learn it. I can't tell you where to put the marks. You feel that as you go along, but learning how to feel it's important. I hope that makes sense. I'm not sure it even does to me. I'm going over in that top now with my yellow ochre. The reason I like to do this is because, number one, I want those warm tones back in, but all the texture that I've put under it, and just push it here and there, that's a texture I want. All the texture that I've taken the trouble to put underneath now just looks like a scrubby field of wheat, but that's nice and loose. And the other thing I like about this is I've used this yellow ochre in the tips of the trees. So when you look at a picture like this, it will look together. And what I mean by that is I've had a hell of a lot of trouble convincing myself not to buy absolutely everything. I have a really bad case, as in doctors have given up on. I have a bad case of full set syndrome. I have to have all the colours all the time, everywhere. And honestly, on my Patreon is a video of my art area, and you'll see the sort of financial mess I must be in. Let's go back with white and just lighten that up a bit too. Just keep adding layers like this. And I've come to the realisation this year that, number one, buying art materials and using them are two separate hobbies. And I don't really need all the colours. Actually, I made myself a palette at the beginning of the year of all the colours that I thought were so super, super important to my well-being. Drama queen moment. I hardly use them, and I'm actually going back and wearing out the same colour over and over again. So actually what I think I might do next Monday is have a look at the palette that I put together and have a look at the palette and make a new palette with the colours that I actually use and see how different it is, because I bet there will be some surprises on there. Right, that is that, as they say. You could consider with this is a Winsor & Newton Pro Marker in yellow ochre. If you wanted to further warm this up, you could consider glazing. And again, you should have marks on your fingers. That's sort of how it is. It's part of the Artist Club. Just glaze straight over the top. Don't let it dry without moving it to where you want it to be. And again, we're after scratchy and, yeah, quite loose actually. I didn't know I had it in me. I tend to be a pernickety control freak. Thank you, autism. And it's worked really well for me when I've been wanting to have, when I've been getting my science degrees. That's been fabulous. But it's not necessary for art, and it's not necessary to do it all the time. So, yeah, not being a control freak is great. So I'm trying to be looser, but with houses I just can't. So there's that. I'm going to, as my final flourish, Faber-Castell Albrecht Dürer watercolour marker, warm grey 4, darkest warm grey they've got. I'm just going to put some scrubby shade under the eaves, and just to show what the roof is doing. It'll be a bit darker that side, bit darker there, certainly there, and here. And again, if you don't like it, move it about. Use your fingers. Get some fabulous textures. So, for example, if I put that there and then drag it down straight away, you honestly can't get that with a brush. Your fingers are super, super important. Right. And the next thing is our 11th commandment, thou shalt not fiddle. And that is knowing when a picture's finished and leave it alone. What I would do really with a picture like this now is I would put it up in my kitchen. The kitchen's a great place because I'm walking through there doing things all the time. And every time I go through there, I'll have a look and see. And I'll look at the picture and I think, oh my goodness, that's awful, or that's wrong, that should be here, that should be there. It's that it's when you're not concentrating on it so much is that when something jumps out. See, for example, here, the one thing I'm not keen on is how straight this line is here. So I think I would be more tempted to come in with the forest pencil and just ruin that pattern. So come back up here, then back in with, where are you? There you are. The yellow or the green ochre. Give it a bit of a highlight, smooth it out. I just don't want that sort of pattern where it's flat. There are no straight lines in nature. That's one of the first things that you should be told as an artist, especially if you like drawing a mixture of things like man-made and natural. There are no straight lines in nature. Some things might look straight from a distance, the horizon, for example, but it isn't. And the only thing, this is why I quite like being tight and controlled with my houses, because those are the man-made element of a picture. So I don't mind doing that. Whereas with my trees and even this, even though you could argue that a field of wheat that's been sown in an agricultural setting is obviously man-made. It didn't grow there naturally. But once the wheat starts growing, it does its own thing. Yeah, the stalks look a bit straight, and you can argue that they are straightish, but there's still a natural element at the end of the day. So the only straight parts, or perfectly round or perfectly elliptical or oval, are man-made elements. And if you mess that up, it can make your painting look a little bit off. So let the natural elements be free and loose, and if you need to control anything, control the man-made element. So here we've got a house in the picture. That's my bit that I can play with and say, right, that's going to be quite nice and straight, if that makes sense. Please let me know in the comments if it doesn't, and I shall be very happy to clear that up for you, probably. Thank you so much for watching, and if you've watched to the end, let me know in the comments, because I would love to know how you're enjoying these videos and is there anything I could do differently. Always happy to hear your thoughts, because this channel's for you, not for me. So yeah, love doing this, and have a fabulous Monday. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And again, if you like what I've done here, consider joining my Patreon, where you'll get more of this sort of thing. And I will see you next Monday. Bye for now. Bye.